Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's February 27th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And as you can see here on the daily chart, we're really just continuing to kind of work sideways. We're not really bouncing out of here. We're not really selling off any further. It's kind of acceptance at prices at this level. And if you drag this on over, you can see we bounced right off that low again. So we're just really kind of back in this range again. So will we sell off from here? If we ever get out, push lower and come back and test this lower side and keep going lower, then I would say we're probably going lower. Until then, we'll test this a couple times, and if it holds, we may go back higher again. So it's just right now you can see we're just kind of in congestion here. It's consolidation. We are down here into oversold territory, especially when we got down below this purple. So no surprise really that we bounced out of there. Are we really just bouncing out of the oversold territory, or are we bouncing because of the support here? We'll see what happens the next couple of days if we turn lower or if we turn back up, and we'll kind of go from there. But wouldn't be out of the ordinary. I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of expectations to come back and test this midline. That's what this is. This or actually when I call this a midline because it is on the bands, but it is also, this particular line is the same thing as a 21 EMA. These other bands are based on some other formulas, but this middle one is simply a 21 EMA. And so it operates just like the 21 EMA on any other chart. You can see we're below it, above it, below it. I mean, we've been back and forth. We're just going sideways here. So we're going to continue to do that, maybe, or are we going to sell off or turn up? I mean, if you back out here, I would expect that we're going to try to retest these lows at some point. So that's my expectations, but right now we're just going sideways. So you can't argue with it. You can clearly see even in the short term we're sideways here. It's just congestion right there. So and you can see the way we traded up very strongly, like we were going to rally up out of here today, and we closed higher, but we closed much lower than after breaking higher here. We turned back down and closed. We didn't close on the lows of the day, but we closed much lower, and we actually closed slightly higher than Friday's price action, but we closed much lower than where we were trading at one time today. So it's just kind of mixed trading again. But anyway, we started off real strong and ended up kind of weak. So, but let's flip over to the 2000 tick intraday chart and take a look at it and go through the trades and go from. Okay, here's a look at it. We started out at this trend up. The way I played it was the blue two-tiered trend. It's possible you could have looked at this as a spiking channel. The reason I didn't really like it as the spiking channel is because we had a close outside already here, and then we were responding to it again here and going up very strongly. So to me, I felt like we were in this larger blue channel. But notice what happens on it. We just kind of reverse and sell off, and we never really retest the highs for the day. So another thing to consider is, even though this is outside the overnight highs, except for this failed break higher here, we really traded inside the overnight highs and lows for the day. So you could have looked at it as a range day, and you can see it fits in there. You can see we were playing both sides of that midline, and this breakout failed, and we got back inside, but really we spent most all day in a downtrend. We spent the overnight and early part of the morning, just after the regular session opened, maybe the first 30 minutes in an uptrend, and then we sold off. And it was really downtrend. There's a little correction here, but that gives you a break of this two-tiered cyan colored channel, and then a move to a new low, and then we rallied out of that. So several ways really to look at it. If you saw this as a spiking channel, then you may not have got caught off guard when this sold off and just kept going here. I had somebody else that played this even differently than this, and I really don't want to get off on a tangent, but this trader played it off of this high, and I believe they played it like that right across there, if I remember right. I can't even get mine to look the same playing it that way. But they played it off here, and this swing here, maybe they played it off this first swing. That's how they played it. Okay, I'm sorry. They played it off of that first swing there and played it like so. And the price action does fit, except you don't get any traction here off the trend line when it comes back. And you still get the break in a new high. So I'm not necessarily going to say this is wrong either. This is just probably another shorter term trend within the larger trends. So there's a lot of different ways you could have looked at this today. The problem this trader made was, and I did want to talk about this real quick. We'll talk about it since we don't have a lot of trades today. But notice that we made a new swing high here. So you got the count started over, and then you get a first entry and you get a second entry with a fairly nice signal bar right off the key entry point. So when he took that second entry, I'm assuming because it's a second entry and it's right off the key entry point, and it fails on him pretty quickly, and he gets stopped out, and he can't understand why, because it looks like a good second entry and it is off the key entry point. But there's a lot to see here, and one is you're in a current downtrend here. You're making lower high, even though there's a second entry right here, you're still making lower highs and lower lows every time. So there's nothing to tell you that, hey, this trend is over. So we don't go long just because there's a second entry at a key entry point. Yeah, you might have been waiting to see if you got a setup when it comes back here, but I don't. But even though this is a second entry long, you're still making a lower low, lower high, lower low, and not only that, this signal bar is an engulfing bar. So really the second entry occurred when it broke above that bar, and it closed well below the EMA. So I'm not going to enter on this one. So if you enter here, you're really entering too late. If you're going to do that, really, you might let it break higher and say, okay, I'm dropping my limit order one tick back above this bar. I still don't think that gets you out, and you get trapped and you get stopped out before it does go higher, just like you expected. So you have to understand, this is the hardest part about a correction. This could be a correction and we may go higher, but it might also be a trend going lower, and it might not be going to end right here. So how do you know that? Well, you have to kind of consider what's going on, and the only thing you can see right here is you're making lower highs and lower lows. So this is where I might wait on a higher low before I entered, just to prove that, hey, prices are going higher. And you see, once we made a low and made a higher low, I think it was pretty obvious then this trend's valid, and I still probably wouldn't have gone long, but it would have at least worked on a higher low, and you get two legs of correction. Of course, you get your break and you move to a new low, and then it reverses. So, when you're making consistent lower highs and lower lows, and you're thinking it's a correction and you're looking to get long, be very careful, even if there's a second entry, unless it's two clear legs back, and this is definitely not two clear legs back. There's first entry, second. I mean, you're steadily making lower highs and lower lows in multiple swings. So there's no reason at all to think, hey, we're fixing to go higher here. We could, but there's not enough evidence to say, yeah, we're going higher. So you're gambling. There's not enough information to know if we're going higher there or we're going lower. Yeah, we could bounce here. It's a possibility that trend line may hold. There is a second entry, but you're making lower highs and lower lows. So what's the right call here? Do nothing. Wait until you get more information. Wait on a higher low. Wait until you start to get higher lows and higher highs, and you get a failure or reversal or whatever. You wouldn't get a reversal. You get a failure in a continuation pattern. But it's pretty obvious this blue channel is right too, and you just came off the highs, and you're nowhere near the midline, and you're underneath the EMA, so that's another strike against it. even if this short-term one is right, you may still get your break back to the midline and then go higher, which is really what kind of happened. So the idea here is not to look for second entries or any patterns at all. The idea is to read the price action, understand what's going on, and take high probability entries. Well, if there's a correction making lower highs and lower lows on multiple swings, I mean, there's multiple swings down through here, so it's not clearly two legs back, even though you could call that a second entry, because technically by the counts it is. But it's still multiple lower high and lower low swings, and so just because there's a second entry there is not enough, especially with the prices being below the EMA, far just coming off the highs up here and still far away from the midline. Hopefully that's clear. I mean, I tried to explain that to the trader, and hopefully they'll watch this and they'll get a better clue. But you can clearly see we had a trend up, trend down. And again, I think in the end it's a range day with a trend up and a trend down. And, you know, I'm not saying this trend is wrong here that he took, because it clearly comes up, gets a break, and move to a new high and sells off. So maybe his trend's right too. But guaranteed this one's correct. We just never get a retest. And maybe that's because the sideways channel is too strong, or the downtrend channel turns out to be too strong. So on the big picture in the daily chart, we're just in a range, and this is off the highs of that. So that would lead to a sell-off. So you gotta see the everything. And to me, again, this really looks like a spiking channel, and I really like it. But the reason I don't necessarily like this one is because you usually start off the lowest two swings, which are first two swings, which are here. Now, if you start here on this high or low, which sometimes you may start there, but very rarely on the big picture, you usually start at the lowest point off the first two swings. And if you draw that, if you stick to that rule, you would have got this blue channel, because there it is. There's the first two swings. And even if you didn't do that, if you looked at the spiking channel and you start off the first two swings, then you get this that I showed you a minute ago. And it fits. And to me, it looks like maybe it's really what we have. I had a hard time believing it because of this right here with a break, and then we were still going higher here. But you can clearly see we had a break. That's two pretty close measured legs up, and then we sold off. So yeah, maybe it's right. And you can clearly see the midline in there coming into play. Everything plays out. So there's different ways to see this, because there's multiple things going on at every level, and just about all of them get you to the same place. So just because you have a trend line and a second entry off of it, you got to be careful and understand what prices are doing, and they're clearly trending lower there. And you can see that, and you get a break, new low, and then it reverses. So the trader completely missed that. And maybe it's because he's honing in on this channel that's coming up, as I just showed you right here. He's honing in on that and honing in on the second entry, and he's not paying any attention to what's going on this correction. Or at least that's the way it appears. I mean, I can't read his mind, but just based on the fact that he saw a second entry at a key entry point, that's got to be what he's honing in on, because he misses this downtrend altogether. So don't lose sight of the forest for the trees, or trees for the forest, however you want to say it or look at it. But let's zoom in here, go through the trade. 7 o'clock came right in this sideways stuff. This was tempting here, but there's a lot of stem there, so that scares me away from that failed breakout. You know, usually I talk about this all the time. Those turn out to be pretty good spots to enter, important lows. And if you catch that one trade, I mean, you ride this pretty much all the way up. And you know, even if you just exited on the first break below a bar that closes outside, there's 15 points on one contract, and you had a pretty good trade. So I like these failed breakouts. That just doesn't give you a very good signal bar there. But you do get a higher low on a breakout pullback, and you got to be careful on breakout pullbacks. But this is a pretty strong move up into the sideways, and with that failed breakout, generally you'd like to see it test this twice, so that's the reason I marked this green. But that's one breakout pullback that will probably go higher because you got a lot of momentum working on that failed breakout. So maybe you take that trade. It is right off the midline of the bigger channel in case there is a midline there. At that point, probably all you would have had was a leg up and sideways, and now you're looking for a possible measured leg up, and you get it almost to the tick, and then it sells off. And that's another thing to consider here about going long is you've already had two measured legs up. So there's a good chance you're going to get a bigger correction. So don't just go looking for second entries and patterns. But you may take that trade. I marked it green. Then we're just kind of working down. I'm a little leery about going short here. I don't see anything until we get a true second entry here. This breaks higher and turns down on a second entry. That's probably going to trap people because this is a clear channel here. Probably make a new low. Maybe you take that on the engulfing bar, but even if you want to wait, I like going short below that bar. You got plenty of room down to these lows. Quick, easy scalp, and then it reverses. There's a failure here, but it is off the midline, but it doesn't get back to the EMA. I'm not too crazy about it. There's a lot of sideways action right there. A lot of resistance right there, so that could fail. Pushes on up. You do get a second entry here, and we test that breakout of that high, that overnight high. We test it. It looks like we pulled back and tested it once, twice, three times. Second entry long. The problem here is we didn't quite get back to the EMA, but it's clear that's a trend line. I like that one. It's a little aggressive because it's not back to the EMA, but there's reasons to like that trade and take it if you get a chance at it. So moves up. We do get a close outside, move to a new high, and then we're selling off here. It takes it a few minutes to kind of get some momentum to the downside. I draw this trend line right here. Notice you got a new high there, and you try to go high once, twice. There's clearly two legs down. It failed. It's underneath the EMA. That usually sets up a reversal. At this point, I was kind of playing the blue channel. I was looking for it to come back to this trend line at a minimum, and it goes straight there pretty quickly. There is a little lower high here, but you got to go short with not much room there, right into the lows. There is a little bit of room here for pulling back to test that again. It's another one you might argue to be green, but I'd probably wait. I'd take this one first before I'd take that one. And either one turns out to be a pretty good trade. Drops on down. We're kind of working sideways here, and you get another turn down. You've got the close outside of the yellow channel. You get a big bearish bar. You expect this to try to make a new low. You got plenty of room here, so I like that one. Comes back again, and you're just kind of chopping sideways here. If this would have been a little better signal bar, maybe you take that one. But clearly, pretty quickly, you pull outside and you get a failed second entry long and a little double top, and it's coming from underneath. So you'll probably get at least another leg down like this one. That would be your expectations, to get two legs down. You can see that's pretty much what we got. Then it tries to bounce. Has a hard time though. And again, you get another first entry, second entry, and a first entry, second entry short. So you got a failed second entry long, a second entry short, really bearish bar. There's not a lot of room there, but I would expect at least to probably, or prices to attempt another measured leg like this one. And so that puts prices on down here. They don't quite get there, but you easily get a scalp out of that on that failure. This is just a little too choppy. There's like a little triple test, but there's not much room to those lows, especially the closes. You're more interested in these lows, but I just didn't like that one. Everything's above the EMA there. We just came off the lows. This is one of those where it's kind of hard to know. We're probably going to go lower, but I want something stronger than that. I want a trap or something like you get here. And that takes us on down. It bounces. Notice how it can't really get back down here again, and then it rallies strongly. There's a high or low right here. I didn't mark this one again. It's an engulfing bar. I definitely wouldn't have entered on that. If it would have broke straight higher there, I might enter, but it gives you another inside bar and 2 bar matching highs. So that's not necessarily a good sign that we're going higher. But if you wait a minute, this runs up, gives you a pretty good, some pretty good momentum, and then you get a first entry and a second entry right off the key entry point. You were looking for prices to come up here, at least make a new high on this green, lime green channel, and that's a quick, easy move. You get a high or low here, and you might even consider that. It probably closes in the upper third. It's close. It's one that you might just mark it green anyway. And notice that we pulled back and test that midline twice across there. That's on the range, if you were looking at the range. Comes back up, turns down right off the key entry point. Gives you a lower high. Then it gives you somewhat of a reversal. But the way I looked at this is this looks like one leg down, then you try to go higher twice, and then it also looks like 2 legs back. So I like going short on that one if you're going to go short. This one is really tempting being that far away from the EMA. And even this one, because it's a lower high and you're still way away from the EMA. So you could really argue for either one of those to be green. I like, and you might, this one's close to being red, and so you could even argue for it to be red, but I like trying to get the reversal. And in this case, the true reversal came right here, or failure. But that just looks like one leg down to me. So when we got the next failure, you can see the smarter traders were waiting on that. They see that, and then you kind of get a quicker and larger move down. It actually comes back again before it goes lower, and then it reverses and rockets up again. And now you got your first break outside this channel. Unfortunately, you don't get anything to go short there. I don't like the reversal here. There is a second entry here, but it's just kind of sideways. That's pretty tempting, but it's right into all those lows, so I'm a little leery of it. Turns out it drops down pretty good. And then we're just chopping sideways again. Notice you get to close, you got a little correction, close outside, you try to go higher twice. Can't make a new high, and it just turns down, but there's no setup to go short there. But if you just sit patiently, a few minutes later, you get a first entry, second entry, right at the key entry point. Quick, easy move. And then we just kind of work sideways into 230. I don't see anything else there. There's actually another second entry short here, but by that time, this is the way I would be reading this. It's just a real tight range there. And even though that's at 230, it's probably close enough that you might take that, but it doesn't make a new high, and there's too close to the support. So it really doesn't qualify for a signal bar. The second entry this is your signal bar, and the second entry triggered on a break below it. So nothing there. So there it is. Kind of an odd day. Again, if you back on out at the end of the day, it's just kind of a range day. It's just an up day and a down day. And not much else you can say about it. You get some tricky trading. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a really strong reversal day, and we gotten that a couple of times. It looks like it's going to be really strong in one direction, and it changes gears on us. So just be careful. Expect mixed trading lately. That's just, I mean, no matter how the day starts out, expect that there's a high probability that before the day is over, you're going to see some mixed trading, strong moves in both directions. And if you don't get fooled by that, then it makes it a lot easier. So try not to get fooled on those. Expect it. And if you don't get it, great, but expect it, and because you probably are going to get it. But anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap this one up. That's how I saw it today. I hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.